What up, though, y'all? We back with another episode of Politics as Usual right here on the Ethos Media Network. It's your boy Shane G, and you already know how we do. Like I told y'all last time, man, I'm gonna give y'all some examples this time of basically how to follow the money. You know what I'm saying? Like, because that's basically what it all comes down to. Um, we went over how much money we make collectively. As a whole country, we went over where the money's going, and we went over some of the laws that were passed that sort of made things appear to be lopsided in the direction of corporations and people who already have money. We also went over different various ways that people uh, escape paying taxes. How people with wealth, a lot of the ways that they make money typically are associated with ways that are taxed lower, such as stocks, things like that. Stock dividends are taxed much lower than your wage, for example, if you work hourly wage. Just things like that. When you make a certain amount of money, how much what the percentage is of that tax, how many loopholes you're allowed to use, all that kind of stuff. So if you missed all of that, make sure you go back to episodes 1, 2, and 3 and catch back up, and then come holla at me right here. And then what we're going to do today is we're going to get into some of the specifics. Now, this is just one example that I'm pointing out that leads in a few different directions, but I'm just going to focus on one example today just to show you guys an example of how this works. And what I want you guys to do with this basically is apply it to pretty much every politician that you can think of for the most part. There's a few exceptions out there. We'll get into those exceptions and we'll get into whether or not they're actually doing anything. But for right now, I just want to give you an example of how this all comes together. The question I left y'all with at the end of the last episode was, what are why is this allowed? If it appears to be so lopsided, if it appears we're making all this money but nobody has any money, why is this happening? Why is this allowed? So that's what we're going to get into today. So um the first question that we need to answer is, what is lobbying? So lobbying in politics, lobbying, persuasion, or interest representation is the act of lawfully attempting to influence the actions, policies, or decisions of government officials, most often legislators or members of regulatory agencies. So what that means basically is your job is to legally attempt to get the people who are in the government to sign bills, to sign laws into your favor. That's your whole job as a lobbyist. Whatever industry you represent or whatever business you represent, your entire job is to get policies, laws, bills, things of that nature passed in your favor. Okay? That's your whole job. That's what you are paid to do. And it's lawful, it's legal. You're allowed to do that. Okay? So let's move on. Who is the top lobbyist? Well, I picked a certain year, and we're gonna get into why I picked this year. But I think a lot of you will be able to follow me. But we picked the year 2010 just to give you guys a representation of how this all works, right? So the most prolific lobbyists represent dozens of clients as they try to shape regulations and legislation. That's what we just went over, in the last slide. So who is the top lobbyist of the year 2010? Stewart Van Scoyak. I'm pretty sure I mispronounced that, but whatever. Stewart Van Scoyak. Revolving door profile. Yes. What does that mean? That means you work for both the government and the industries that you're supposed to be either regulating or passing bills or passing laws that would affect said business or said industry. So you work in that industry, then you work in the government, then you work in the industry, back and forth. That's what revolving door is. By the way, this website that we're looking at right here is opensecrets.com. And this will basically give you a trail of money to anybody that is in government. Um, it'll tell you where they get their money from. It's a great website. It's a great tool if you want to know who to vote for. We're gonna get into why this is important in a minute. But clients 320. So that's 320 different individuals and businesses that he represents that he lobbies on behalf of to the government. Okay, keep that in mind. Who does he work for? He works for Capital Donations Incorporated. He was hired by 28 different clients in 2010. That's his lobbying firm. So that's what a lobbying firm is. They're a business, and the entire the whole thing that they do in their business is get people to try to get government to pass laws in favor of whatever industries they represent. All right. So let's keep going. Capital Decisions Incorporated, that's who he works for. H. Stewart Stoyak. Keep this name in mind because we're going to continue to follow this. Capital Decisions Incorporated is a lobbying firm that was hired by 42 clients in 2010. So he represented 28 different clients by himself, but the firm as a whole represented 42 different clients for a total amount of $3,005,000. And you can take a look at that graph here. Now, this graph basically shows how much money they were lobbying every year from the year 2000 all the way to this year, 2022. And if you look in the middle here, in 2010, that's where the high, that 3 million number is. All right, so let's keep going. Now, this is who he lobbied for, and I want you guys to pay attention to the industries that he lobbied in. Now, remember what year this is. This is 2010. I want you guys to try to think about what law regarding healthcare passed around 2010. Client, Texas Health Resources, $230,000. I'm not sure how to pronounce this, but 150 grand. Midwest City Memorial Hospital Authority, not the hospital, but the hospital authority, 140 grand. American Society of Addiction Medicine, 130 grand. State of Oklahoma, 120. Hazelden Foundation, 110. Ada Public Works and Authority, 100 grand. So this is the amount of money that was spent lobbying on behalf of these businesses. So these businesses paid the lobby firm this amount in the middle to lobby on behalf of the industry to the right. So as you can see, look at this. This is just the top 10. Health services, pharma and health production, hospitals, nursing homes, health professionals, hospitals and nursing homes. You see, real estate, general contractors, businesses. You see what I'm saying? So like this is the top 10 most amount of spending with this particular group in 2010. Okay, let's move on. The United States spent $2.6 trillion on healthcare in 2010. Spread over the population, this amounts to about $8,402 per person. That's how much it costs basically for healthcare per person in the United States in the year 2010. 2.6 trillion represents 17.9% of the nation's total economic activity, referred to as the gross domestic product or GDP. Remember, that's the total amount of money that's made, period. We went over that number at the beginning, in the first episode. Barack Obama. There's a reason why I brought him up. Now, I want you to see. Now, this is money that he received when he ran for president in 2008. The first time he ran for president. These are the industries, the top 5 industries that paid him the most. Okay? The number 1 industry that paid him was lawyers and law firms. $46,988,063 he received from lawyers and law firms from that industry combined. The retirement industry, I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I guess that means retired people. $43,213,842. Education, $25,418,843. Securities and investment, 16,580,277 million. Health professionals, number 5. This is the top 5 amount that he was given. And remember what we spoke about last time. These businesses are allowed to give unlimited amounts of money to these candidates using their general funds. Remember that. So this is health industry as well, the health professional industry. So this is, not like just nurses and things of that nature. This is, your high level surgeons. This is, the industry itself, so health professionals as a whole. That's pharma, that's all of that. $13,864,142. Okay. Let's keep that in mind. Let's move on. The Affordable Care Act is what we all call Obamacare, right? Now, I asked you guys earlier in the clip, remember what health reform passed around the time of 2010? The Affordable Care Act passed in 2010. The Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare. Now, what does the screen say right here? Let's read this. The individual mandate is a provision within the Affordable Care Act that required, that's a key word right there. The individual mandate is a provision within the Affordable Care Act that required individuals to purchase minimum essential coverage or face a tax penalty unless they were eligible for an exemption. An individual mandate meaning we are making you do this. That's what that word means. You have to do it. Mandate. The individual mandate meaning every person is made to do this, is a provision within the Affordable Care Act that required, meaning again, you're mandated, you have to do this, that required individuals, people, to purchase minimum essential coverage. Think about what that does. Just briefly think about what that does. If everyone, with the exception of people who, have an exemption, which were limited, if everyone has to buy insurance, essentially, or face a tax penalty, who offers insurance? Big business, right? Okay. Let's keep going. $12,530 per person. What do you think that represents? What number do you think that represents right there? Remember that other number we went through in 2010? What the average cost was? Let's look at that number again. What was the average cost? The average cost back then was $8,402. What number is this for? $12,530 per person. What year is that? That was that's 2018. I got this out of order, my bad. But let's get into more of our guy Stewart Van Scoyak here. Remember, I brought him up earlier. Let's look into his bio. So he is president and chief executive officer of Van Scoyak Associates, Washington, D.C.'s largest independent government affairs group. Interesting. Remember, his entire background is in lobbying. And he's part of the, again, the revolving door that we discussed earlier as well. Van Scoyak founded this organization in 1990 with a focus on congressional appropriations and taxation. So his focus is lobbying Congress people to try to get taxes lowered. In 1994, he established an implementation group to provide professional assistance in the implementation and evaluation requirements of publicly funded programs. So what that means is he wants people to have to test basically to receive government assistance if they're struggling. TIG specializes in opportunity identification and capture strategies for federal grants and contracts. In 2000, Stu created Capital Decisions Incorporated. Oh, no, this wasn't the place. Sorry. I will get to that in a minute, though, what I was about to say. In 2000, Stu created Capital Decisions Incorporated to provide government relations and public affairs counsel in the specialties of healthcare, grassroots advocacy, and community development. Finally, in 2002, Stu formed the law firm of Van Scoyak Kelly, PLLC, to be strategically allied with his other governmental affair firms. VSK provides counsel for military and other government contractors, in addition to innovative legal solutions for acquisition, procurement. Remember that word we brought up a few episodes ago when we were talking about the military budget, procurement, and regulatory issues. Prior to the establishment of the Van Scoyak Company, Stu was the founding partner of Winbum, Van Scoyak and Hooper government relations firm. In addition, Van Scoyak spent 8 years as vice president at the prestigious Charles Walker Associates. I could not find any information about this organization whatsoever. There were several Charles Walker associates that popped up. None of them were affiliated with each other, and they were spread all over the place. So this did not. They have that very well covered up. Like they're not out there at all. But it says he specialized in tax, energy, insurance, and environmental matters. Now remember we were talking about regulatory issues earlier, so you could assume in one way that he was maybe lobbying for stricter government regulations. You could say that. Um, Usually that's not what that means, though, especially when we get into this last paragraph here. Corporate experience is an invaluable part of understanding the client, and Van Scoyak fortunately worked with some of the best at DuPont Company. We really will, yeah, remember them. And this is why I say it's probably not for more regulation when it came to the environment. He probably was lobbying for less based on the fact that he has worked with some of the quote unquote best at DuPont Company. Stu first worked in various DuPont engineering assignments while earning his law degree at night from the University of Maryland. He then continued his career in DuPont's Washington office, working on a variety of legislative and regulatory issues. Why are DuPont and Chemours still discharging the most notorious forever chemical? It's a great question. Why are they doing that? Let's find out. The big bang of the nationwide forever chemicals crisis was the revelation in 2001 that a PFOA, a toxic compound used to make Teflon, now mind you, Teflon is the stuff that they use for bulletproof vests, right? A toxic compound used to make Teflon had contaminated the drinking water for 70,000 people near a DuPont factory in West Virginia. Pressure from the Environmental Protection Agency forced DuPont and other companies to phase out PFOA, and they agreed not to use it after 2015. So why are DuPont and its spinoff company Chemours still discharging PFOA from their facilities? I wonder if it has anything to do with any of that lobbying we were talking about earlier. PFOA is the most notorious of the thousands of fluorinated chemicals known as PFAS, which has contaminated drinking water for an estimated 200 million plus Americans. Very small doses of PFOA and other PFAs have been linked to kidney and testicular cancer, thyroid issues, high cholesterol, reproductive and developmental harms, and reduced effectiveness of vaccines. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention says those chemicals pollute the bodies of virtually all Americans, including newborn babies. PFOAs and other PFAs are called forever chemicals because they never break down in the environment. PFAs discharged over the past 50 years by companies like DuPont and 3M, which knew it was dangerous as early as the 1950s, will stay in the environment until it's actively remediated. All right. I thought I had another slide in here. I must have missed it. Um, but it was another affordable healthcare slide. Let me see. Yeah. It was basically to say how much money we were spending by the time Obama left office. And the number was insane. The number that we're spending since Obama left office, man, I don't know what I did with that graphic. I wish I had it. Um, but the number that we're spending, it's drastically higher though, is the point. And that's where that 12,000 number comes from that I showed you guys. Um, current by the time Obama left office, right? 2018, we were spending over $12,000 per person on healthcare. Now, I ask you guys, do you think everybody in the country or a vast majority of people in the country within a 6-year period all got so much sicker that they all had to start going to the hospital and getting medicine and spending all this money on healthcare? Do you think that's the case? Or do you think maybe there was a slight gradual mix of, unhealthiness, upticking, but also because of the fact that you had to buy insurance by law? Do you think that had anything to do with the amount of money spent per person on healthcare went up? I'm asking. I'm asking you to come to a conclusion on that. Um, and again, we see a guy who spent lots of money on healthcare, and we see a healthcare policy pass that would absolutely financially benefit all of the people that he lobbied for. I think that's undeniable, right? Because we saw how much more money each individual person had to spend on healthcare. It went from 8,000 to 12,000 in a matter of 8 years. It was 8 years because it got implemented or no, I'm sorry. It was 2016 because, yeah, it was 2016. So it was a 6-year period. I was right because it was 2010 when it got implemented. And by the time Obama left office, at the beginning of 2017. So yeah. Um, yeah, absolutely. That definitely, definitely, I would say that the people that he lobbied for benefited, on due to, his lobbying efforts and people like him. And then to the second point, the other industries, you notice that they were, they were like development and agricultural, those type of industries. Um, if you notice, again, DuPont still dumping chemicals in the water. And that article was written, the one that I just read you guys, that was written this year. That's not an old article. That was written this year, and they were supposed to stop dumping chemicals in 2015, and they haven't done it yet, and they're not facing any penalties. Um, why is that? Again, I would argue that when you have people who lobby on behalf of these industries that want less regulation, what is regulation in the sense of a place like DuPont? Well, a regulatory agency would be able to come in and fine them if they're discharging their waste in a harmful way to the environment. For example, they would be able to fine them. They would be able to have penalties for that type of thing. But when you lobby for less regulation and the regulation gets so lax to the point where there aren't very many penalties, or there's ways to skate out of the penalties when you do violate uh the laws that do exist, then essentially this is what you get. You get companies that say they're going to stop dumping stuff into the water and poisoning. The number was 200 million people, 200 million Americans have been affected by this to one degree or another over, since the 1950s, I think it said. Um, that's why regulation is important. But when you have people that are essentially using, again, unlimited corporate funds to lobby and to do these things to persuade people, and it's their legal job to persuade people, what do you think is going to happen? Again, I'm asking you to come to these conclusions. We saw what happened with Obamacare. Now, did it have a lot of good provisions? Absolutely. Absolutely, it had a lot of good provisions. The fact that people could stay on their insurance until they were, I believe, 27. That was a great thing. You know what I mean? The fact that it did expand certain government option, healthcare related things for people, who were less fortunate, or who didn't make a lot of money. You know what I mean? Like those things were good, but it did make healthcare go up for everybody else. Um, because again, tax money still had to subsidize for the people that couldn't afford it themselves. And there's a lot of red tape involved, but just, understand also that, there's a certain amount of money. How can I say that? A corporation that big is almost guaranteed up front. And if they don't make up for it when it comes to medicinal type of things, and we'll get into this in future episodes as well. When it comes to medicinal things, if it's something that a private company alleged, you could say is giving to the government, a lot of times they need their money on the back end, if you get what I'm saying. So yeah, we're gonna get into all of those things, man, but just like I said, follow the money. you know if you want to know how somebody's going to vote, you can look at that website I just showed you, opensecrets.org. You can look at that website. You can see which industries are paying who. You can see who the top lobbyists are, who's actually paying the politicians. And you can look up the politicians and see who they're receiving money from, what industries, what individuals, what businesses, everything is on there. If somebody's telling you that they, really believe in fair policing and they want, police reform and things like that. But then you look on Open Secrets and you see that the majority of their money is coming from police unions and law firms and lawyers and things like that. I don't know if I would believe that person. If there's somebody who says that they believe in healthcare for everybody, and they want some form of Medicare for all or something to that effect. If they're saying things like that, but then you look on their Open Secrets profile and you see that the majority of their money is coming from professional healthcare workers, not nursing unions. That'd be different because they're like the ground level workers. That's a different thing. But we're talking about the management level, the executive level. That's what they mean when they say healthcare professionals. If they're the ones donating to a politician in heavy amounts, I don't think I would believe that person when they say that they want a cheaper version of healthcare for people. So it's things like this that you learn over time, and this is the things that I want to share with y'all. So I appreciate y'all rocking with me once again. This is Politics as Usual right here on the Ethos Media Network. Tune in every Saturday. You know what I mean? We're going to be right here dropping some knowledge for y'all, dropping gems. That's what I try to do right here on this show. You know what I mean? So once again, thank y'all. Like, share, subscribe, share this around. You know what I mean? If you disagree with me, put it in the comments, man. I'm not right about everything, and I don't pretend to be right about everything. I just feel like I'm well researched, but I'm always willing to learn from other people's perspectives as well. You know what I'm saying? Whether you're on the left wing, whether you're on the right wing, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, a socialist, a libertarian, whatever you consider yourself, you know what I mean? I'm here to listen. I'm here to learn, and I'm here to hopefully teach. So with all that being said, man, I appreciate y'all, and I'll check y'all out next week. Peace.